Okay, so we are at item 11, recommendations from the Hawke's Bay Civil Defence Emergency. Oh, 10, sorry, I've missed one. This is not a good start.
You're clearly approving recommendations, Chairman.
All right, so item 10, which is on page 53 of your papers. So it's just a report on the Coastal Hazards Joint Committee. Perhaps I'm the most appropriate person to speak to it since I've recently been re-elected as chair of that committee, and there are some new members there. So the point which we're at with the coastal hazard strategy now is that we have basically completed the appointment of the assessment cells for each of the two cells. There's one, if you recall, Port North, and there is another Port South. Each of them has around about 20 voting assessment panel members drawn from the local community, the local business community, and iwi. There will also be a number of observers to those assessment panel meetings, our technical advisory group and some councillors, and also the Living at the Edge scientific team will be attending those meetings. It was intended that we would have a launch with both assessment panels on the 7th of December. That had to be delayed because we felt it was an important opportunity to garner some public attention to the process, I guess you could say. Unfortunately, neither of the mayors nor the chair, neither any politicians from Wellington were available to lend their public weight to that occasion, so it's been delayed till the new year. So there's a new terms of reference, which is basically the old terms of reference with the new councillor names in it, and a couple of other very minor changes. So one question I would like to ask is that you'll recall that each of the councils who are represented on the joint committee have 2 representatives, and one representative councillor is invited to attend each of the assessment panel meetings, which will be held about every 6 weeks for the next 9 months starting in the new year. Councillor Bailey has indicated that he'd like to attend the Northern Cell meetings. That's correct? I will be attending all of the meetings because I'm going to be chairing all of them, but if there is a councillor here who would like to attend as an observer to the Southern Cell panel meetings, please say so, because you can be added to the list of people who will attend. The meetings will start on round about the 26th, 27th of January, which will be now the joint panels and a launch of the process, and then there will be meetings about every month or 6 weeks thereafter. And there's a draft schedule just being drawn up right now. So you'd like to attend the Southern Cell meetings. That's noted, and I'll make sure that we put your name forward to the advisory group who are forming the panels. Thank you for that. Okay, so unless there are any questions. Thank you. And second? Okay, any further discussion? Put that to the meeting. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. Now we get to item 11.
Yeah, we do indeed. So, look, in the absence of the Chairman, I'll just briefly traverse this report. This is very, very brief. Essentially, the main item on the agenda is to elect a chair of the Civil Defence, the Regional Civil Defence Group, and this paper confirms that Mayor Bill Dalton of Napier was elected as chairman of the Civil Defence Group. That's really the main update. The only other thing I'd say, having been absent from civil defence for about 3 years, I would say I feel much more comfortable with the level of professionalism, rigour, coordination, and in the civil defence group for this region than I did 3 years ago. It's improved exponentially. So that's probably all I want to say, Chairman.
Questions?
Yeah, no, it's just more of a
Sorry, Liz,
statement.
it's
If I
nothing
could,
to do with you.
I should have said well done.
Yeah, of course, it's nothing to do with me.
if I could just reiterate Mr Newman's comments there, Chair. I attended the briefing by the civil defence people here for councillors, and I was most impressed with their, as you call it, professionalism. It was cool.
Okay, so any other comments or questions? Okay, well, I'll ask that this report be adopted then, if we can have a mover. Councillor Belford, second Councillor Wilson. Any further discussion? Put that to the meeting. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. So item 12, which is the report from the Māori Committee, is done. So we're up to item 13, and I feel that I'm sitting here usurping the function of our Deputy Chair, who should come and sit here and take over this meeting and demonstrate his great skill as a chair.
No pressure, Peter Bevan, no pressure.
He got through 3 items in about 3 minutes.
That's the test, Chair. Councillors, order. I'll draw your attention now to item 13. I'll ask Councillor Dick to report on the Transport Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, the committee met on Friday, and so that matters could be tidied up at this meeting, there were final recommendations have been brought forward in the late items paper, and it's the first item in the late items paper. Now, at the last meeting of Council, Council asked us to have a relook at the issue of advisory members, and in particular there was some potential concern noted that the nominee of the Automobile Association was dealing with several portfolio items over and above the issue of private motorists. How the committee was advised, I'll read from the report 7.2.3. The AA realised a number of years ago that to remain relevant, a change of focus from motoring to mobility was necessary as the membership base broadened and there was a need to incorporate all modes of transportation, including cycling, walking, public transport, mobility scooters, as well as motor vehicles and stakeholder representation advocacy. And on that basis, the committee agreed that the AA nominee should continue to deal with those portfolio items that are indicated in the new terms of reference on page 5. The other changes made to the terms of reference were to incorporate the 3 principal actions out of Matariki, for which the Transport Committee is the lead committee. That's improving access to the Port of Napier, supporting timely implementation of key strategic initiatives in the Regional Land Transport Plan, and support the combined approach with Tairāwhiti to achieve significant upgrades to State Highway 2 between Napier and Aporiki. And to that end, the next meeting of the Transport Committee will be in Wairoa early in the new year, and Tairāwhiti representatives will be invited to participate in that. So, that's terms of reference, and it's recommended those amended terms of reference be adopted by Council. The other issues are noted in the paper. And this is quite an important one. That I wonder if we can could we deal with the terms of reference? Resolve to adopt those and then just go on to the other items, Chairman?
I'd prefer you to give your report and come back to the motion second.
Okay. Kiwi Rail, 2 or 3 weeks ago, with Christmas impending, put out a request for expressions of interest for use of the Wairoa to Gisborne rail line, with an emphasis towards tourism-type activities, but ensuring that the Gisborne City Vintage Rail tourist locomotive is able to run at the Gisborne end. Now, the problem that is foreseen is that it's always been considered that within a couple of years or so of the rail freight operation initially based in a hub in Wairoa being established, that there would be a need to haul logs, in particular, from as far north as Kopawafra, which is about the limit of the, if you like, the catchment of the Port of Napier. Beyond that, it's clearly Port of Gisborne. Now, it was could not get a consensus at the committee meeting because the Wairoa representatives may well have slightly different objectives and, for example, may want to promote golf cart type tourism vehicles on that line. But the problem is that unless through scheduling or whatever that there can be shared use, then if there are light vehicles on the line that are incompatible with heavy rail freight, then that loses an opportunity for Northern Hawke's Bay, Kiwi Rail and the port to progress its rail venture by hauling logs from north of Wairoa. So it was suggested that the Regional Council should resolve to respond to that RFP, not with a detailed proposal, but with a letter to Kiwi Rail copied to the port indicating the potential issues and problems that this could create if there are incompatible uses of the line. So, Mr. Chairman, basically the committee is looking for the council to adopt the revised terms of reference and to sanction a contact correspondence with Kiwi Rail to deal with this issue, which has to be done before the 21st of December. That's their deadline.
Thank you. Is there any comment that the officers of the council would like to make?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Liz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to support what Councillor Dick has said in relation to the discussion on the Kiwi Rail tender for expressions of interest for services north of Wairoa. The intent of the letter that would very much be to ensure that any option for rail freight use is preserved in whatever consideration the Kiwi Rail may give to the evaluation of their tenders, and to, I guess, indicate to Kiwi Rail or to confirm to them the longer term goal for that particular line. There's certainly significant forestry up as far as Kopawafra, which is still within Hawke's Bay region, so we believe that certainly from that point of view we can justify corresponding with Kiwi Rail. We're not sure quite what Gisborne District Council is intending to do, but I'll certainly be in touch with them prior to crafting the correspondence if Council agrees to send it.
Before I take a motion, is there any questions? Councillor Bailey?
Sorry, Councillor, that was it was due by the 21st, was it? That so.
Second question.
Second question. No, more of a statement. I think that you could amend the motion so that perhaps you were to sign off on the draft or something as chair of the Transport Committee, rather than. Yeah.
And Councillor Wilson.
So what? Yeah.
Good contacts with Kiwi Rail.
Well, that matter will be dealt with this time. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll seek from you, I presume you'd like to move, councillor Dick, you want two motions, or one, the report be adopted, that the terms of reference be adopted, and that the council conduct an appropriate letter and forward it to Kiwi Rail to meet the deadline of 21st of December.
I'll second that.
Oh, that's your motion. That's your motion. I'll second it. All right, we have a mover and a second. Would you like to speak?
I'd just add that, just for information, that there's considerable activity at the Gisborne end, particularly amongst iwi interests, who are concerned that, in fact, that the line should be reopened all the way from Gisborne to Napier, and for commercial sensitivity reasons, I can't give details, but there's a possibility that they may achieve that, and that's to our benefit, the port's benefit, and the benefit of Northern Hawke's Bay and Poverty Bay. And the other little thing, just in regard to the issue of advisory members, and the terms of reference, another change to terms of reference was that it provided for sorry, too many bits of paper. It provided for a reporting structure for the Regional Cycling Governance Group. Now, the Regional Cycling Governance Group facilitator is a lady by the name of
Vicky
Butterworth, who works for the Regional Council and who incidentally is also a board member of Hawke's Bay AA. So again, just reinforcing the fact that the AA is embracing mobility in its widest sense.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Councillor Dick for raising the issue of the gambit of AA. I appreciate that the discussion was had, and I'm comfortable with that. And I'd also like to thank him for bringing to our attention the Kiwi Rail issue for the Napier-Gisborne line, and that he's also dealing with that.
Thank you, Chair. Just it was my first meeting as deputy, and I just want to say that the previous deputy chair of that committee set the bar high and is a hard act to follow.
Damned by faint praise. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, I'll put the question. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no.